Welcome back to Pete Invests. Today, we are breaking down a massive economic shift impacting working Americans everywhere right now. For decades, being part of the middle class was the ultimate symbol of achieving the classic American dream and stability. It meant owning a comfortable home, taking annual family vacations, and retiring with a true sense of financial peace eventually. But if we look closely at the modern economy, that traditional dream is rapidly slipping out of reach for many. The gap between the ultra-wealthy and the average working citizen has grown wider than at any point in recent history. So why exactly is the middle class disappearing? And what are the invisible forces driving this massive wealth inequality today? To understand this complex issue fully, we first need to carefully examine wage stagnation over the last 40 years today. Since the 1970s, the cost of living has skyrocketed, while average worker wages have barely increased adjusting for inflation. Back then, a single moderate income could easily support an entire household, purchase a home, and comfortably raise multiple children. Today, even families with two full-time incomes often find themselves struggling just to cover basic monthly necessities and climbing bills. One major culprit behind this drastic shift is the transition from a manufacturing economy to a service and technology economy. Millions of secure, well-paying factory jobs that once formed the backbone of the middle class have simply vanished or moved. Corporations heavily outsourced these crucial jobs to other countries where labor was significantly cheaper, maximizing their own massive corporate profits. Meanwhile, the technology sector boomed, creating incredible wealth for a select few while leaving the average blue-collar worker completely behind. If you do not have highly specialized skills or an advanced degree, finding a job that pays well is difficult. This brings us to another massive problem crushing the middle class right now, the terrifyingly rapid rise of inflation rates. The cost of basic human needs like housing, healthcare, and higher education has severely outpaced overall average income growth recently. Let us talk about housing first, because owning a home was once the primary way middle-class families built generational wealth. Over the past decade, median home prices have surged to record highs, completely pricing out millions of young, hopeful buyers. Institutional investors and massive corporate landlords are buying up single-family homes, artificially restricting the market supply and driving up rent. Consequently, more people are forced to rent for life, stripping them of the opportunity to build equity through property ownership. Next, we must examine the heavily burdened healthcare system, which routinely bankrupts ordinary families even if they possess medical insurance. A single unexpected medical emergency can instantly wipe out decades of careful savings and push a family straight into poverty. The staggering cost of prescription drugs and routine medical procedures in this country is vastly higher than anywhere else globally. Then there's the issue of higher education, which was traditionally viewed as the most reliable ticket to middle-class prosperity. College tuition has exploded by hundreds of percent, forcing young adults to take on incredibly high levels of student debt. Starting your professional career buried under tens of thousands of dollars in high-interest loans significantly delays major financial life milestones. You can't easily save for a down payment or invest in the stock market when half your paycheck repays debt. Additionally, the modern tax code heavily favors massive corporations and ultra-wealthy individuals over the average hard-working middle-class American taxpayer today. Billionaires frequently pay a lower effective tax rate than teachers, firefighters, and nurses due to extremely complex corporate tax loopholes. Wealth is easily hoarded at the absolute top, failing to trickle down into the broader economy as we were promised. Furthermore, the systematic decline of labor unions has entirely stripped workers of their collective bargaining power against massive corporate employers. Without strong unions to boldly demand fair wages and decent benefits, corporate executives freely prioritize stock buybacks and shareholder dividends. This means corporate profits soar to unprecedented historic highs, while the workers generating that very wealth receive mere pennies comparatively. The gig economy has also actively contributed to the erosion of stable, long-term employment for millions of struggling working professionals. Companies rely heavily on independent contractors to avoid paying for health insurance, paid time off, and standard minimum wage guarantees. While gig work offers flexible schedules, it lacks the absolute financial security that traditional middle-class careers once guaranteed for workers. Another silent killer of the middle class is the heavily debt-driven consumer culture that actively encourages living beyond our means. Credit card debt has reached terrifying all-time highs as families increasingly rely on borrowed money just to survive everyday life. High interest rates on these heavily maxed-out credit cards create an inescapable cycle of crippling debt that destroys long-term wealth building. We are essentially witnessing the slow, painful hollowing out of the American economy, leaving only the very rich and poor. The middle class is actively shrinking, with some moving up into higher income brackets, but drastically more sliding into poverty. This dangerous polarization of wealth creates intense social and political instability, as frustrated citizens feel the system is entirely rigged. When the middle class is strong, they spend money locally, actively driving robust economic growth and creating thriving community businesses. When the middle class is weak, the entire foundation of our heavily consumer-driven economy becomes incredibly fragile and highly vulnerable. Automation and artificial intelligence are quickly threatening to eliminate even more white-collar jobs that traditionally sustained stable, middle-class American families. Routine administrative work, basic accounting, and even lower-level programming jobs are highly susceptible to being entirely replaced by advanced algorithms. If we fail to aggressively retrain our workforce, the massive displacement caused by artificial intelligence will only accelerate this crisis. So, what can actually be done to stop this rapid disappearance and successfully rebuild the middle class for future generations? First, we desperately need fundamental policy changes that actively promote fair, livable wages and deeply restrict predatory corporate economic practices. Minimum wages must be carefully adjusted to accurately reflect the true modern cost of living in various regions across America. Second, we must address the severe housing affordability crisis by aggressively building more starter homes and actively regulating institutional investors. Making home ownership accessible again is absolutely critical for allowing ordinary families to steadily accumulate meaningful, long-lasting generational financial wealth. Third, healthcare and higher education costs must be aggressively controlled to prevent them from completely bankrupting the average working citizen. We need to actively close massive tax loopholes that easily allow billionaires and mega-corporations to avoid paying their fair share. Reinvesting those heavily recovered tax dollars directly into crumbling public infrastructure and modern education would vastly benefit the entire economy. Encouraging the active resurgence of modern labor unions would directly give workers the necessary leverage to effectively negotiate fair compensation. As individual investors, we also must actively take bold steps to deeply protect our own financial futures in uncertain times. Relying entirely on a single standard paycheck is becoming increasingly dangerous in this highly volatile and rapidly shifting modern economy. Building multiple reliable streams of passive income is no longer just a luxury, it is an absolute necessity for survival. Whether it involves starting a small side hustle, investing heavily in index funds, or acquiring real estate, diversification is key. Financial literacy is arguably your greatest possible defense against the powerful economic forces actively working against the middle class today. By understanding exactly how money truly works, you can strategically navigate this deeply flawed system and actively build lasting wealth. Do not blindly fall into the dangerous consumer debt trap. Actively prioritize aggressively saving and consistently investing your hard-earned money. The disappearance of the middle class is not a natural economic accident. It is the direct result of deliberate choices. Decades of highly specific fiscal policies and massive corporate greed have systematically favored the absolute wealthiest elite over everyone else. However, by actively shining a bright light on these complex issues, we can demand real change and protect our finances. The American dream does not have to die, but it desperately requires a massive fundamental restructuring to survive the future. We must strongly advocate for a fair economy that actively rewards hard work, rather than simply rewarding already established wealth. It will undoubtedly take massive collective effort, but rebuilding a strong, vibrant middle class is entirely possible if we unite. Stay heavily informed, actively vote for fair economic policies, and continuously educate yourself on personal finance to protect your family. Here at Pete Invests, my ultimate goal is to deeply empower you with the critical knowledge needed to thrive today. I want to help you actively secure your financial future, regardless of what happens to the broader middle-class economy overall. If you found this deep economic breakdown helpful, please lightly tap that like button and subscribe for more financial insights. Sharing this vital video with your friends and family actively helps spread critical awareness about this deeply important economic crisis. Let me know your personal thoughts down in the comments below. Have you directly felt the middle class shrinking lately? What specific financial strategies are you actively using to carefully protect yourself against crippling inflation and massive modern economic uncertainty? Thank you so much for watching, and I truly appreciate your continued support for this growing financial education channel today. Remember to always stay highly disciplined, keep consistently investing your money, and never stop actively learning about your personal finances. I will see you all in the very next video. Stay safe and keep actively building your long-term wealth wisely.